It's a brand new season of Marvel Stat, bringing with it 5 new cards. Today's video is going to break down the best decks for climbing back to Infinite, the best performers for each of our new card releases, and the sweet builds that I personally have been having the most success with. Let's go ahead and dive into it, shall we? Our first deck list today has been one of my favorites in the new season. It's featuring Viv Vision, our season pass card, as well as Awesome Andy, one of our new Series 4 cards. Both of these can buff cards up, which works fantastic with Sebastian Shaw and Lasher, and one of my personal favorites that struggled to be enabled in the past, Clea. Clea's best enabled previously had been Marvel Boy. With the addition of Viv Vision and Awesome Andy to the game, however, there's lots of different ways to add stats to her so she can create a constant flow of these flames that can penalize our opponent's board state without taking up space on our own. In addition to Awesome Andy buffing on the board, we also have Herbie, who provides so much utility while also being the occasional Clea enabler, and America Chavez and Agony being able to add a whopping 3 points of power on our 1 energy plays. Feels really clean while also being additional things that Marvel Boy can be pumping up. Marvel Boy and Viv Vision really have a lot of clean synergy together because all of the 1-drops that Marvel Boy wants to have on the board to be pumping when you play him out also provides you with meaningful stats that when Viv Vision can come down, you can be consistently winning her lane so she can pump up the cards in your hand to very reasonable sizes. If you want to color inside the lines a little bit, or if that first deck list has some cards missing in your collection, another core that's very popular for Viv Vision with meaningful stats in the untapped tracker is the Silver Surfer Shell. She's obviously a 3 energy card for Surfer to go ahead and buff up in here, and a number of cards that find their home in lots of Silver Surfer decks like Brood, Captain Carter, and even Human Torch First Steps and Sebastian Shaw. Absolutely love getting extra points of power added on top of them. This archetype, unlike the last one, is also pretty flexible on different cards you could substitute in and out if you've got holes missing in your collection. Essentially, any reasonable 3 energy card, especially disruptive ones like Mobius and Cosmo and Luke Cage, can be excellent substitutions for higher series cards that you might not have in this shop. A second popular Viv Vision variation that's also putting up pretty reasonable stats is the Quicksilver Domino Wiccan core. Quicksilver and Domino not only guaranteed fill out your energy curve early for Wiccan, but they're also guaranteed stats on the board so that when Viv Vision comes down on 3, you can have 8 stats in her location, allowing her to consistently pump up the cards in your hand. This deck list has a lot of key disruptive elements between Mobius M. Mobius and Sandman at the top, and then Viv Vision can make sure you get enough points spread around early for your Galactus first steps to also be absolutely massive at the end of the game. Our last Viv Vision deck today is one that I had a ton of fun with. It's a mashup of 2 different archetypes that really felt like they worked pretty cleanly together. At the bottom end of our curve, we've got the Batroc, the Leaper, in tandem with Sam Wilson and Silk to give us scaling move threats. And then at the top end of our curve, we have Darkhawk being enabled by Korg as well as Terrax the Tamer. Terrax fits really very cleanly in here because these early move cards give us a lot of stats on the board. And then the big upside to having Darkhawk as a secondary payoff at the top end is that it's another ongoing threat alongside Hydro Stomper, so we can play Mystique in this deck list cleanly and consistently have a big number for her to be copying. The fact that Stomper and Mystique are both 3s means that we can often play out 2 double-digit payoffs at the end of the game, wherever it is least ideal for our opponent to be trying to deal with them. Moira X is probably my favorite card to have been released with this new season drop. Her generating a copy of your opening hand when she's destroyed works fantastic with one of my favorite cards in the game, Victoria hand. She also has some of the most absolutely phenomenal animations you've ever seen in Marvel Snap. If you haven't seen that before, you'll definitely want to check out the deck highlight with this one in the video description down below. The core of this deck is relatively straightforward. You've got a Fire Hair Misery deck generating value with things like Hood and Mirage that also get buffed up by Victoria Hand. And we've got key interactive cards allowing you to break things on the opponent's side of the board with stuff like Shadow King, while also enabling our own cards that want to be blown up with things like Killmonger and Lady Deathstrike. Past Victoria hand stuff, Moira is also finding a home inside of more traditional Destroy Shells with some of their best performers in this archetype all featuring her now. While obviously you're not getting any synergy with something like Victoria Hand, getting an extra copy of Null that you can play out 2 of them over the course of the game, think something like X23, or having 2 completely free copies of Death on the last turn of the game can provide a ton of value in what you have going on. This next deck list helped me a good chunk on my personal climb back up to the top as well. It is featuring Awesome Andy as well as the Omega Sentinel as new cards here. The thing that both of these latest additions to our Seasonal Series 4 cards have in common is that they are activate cards whose primary value is in their activate effect, not the body that they leave behind. This means that they are stellar targets for Circe to go ahead and be turning into a random card that costs 1 more, or Merlin to either tuck back into our deck for extra energy on a future turn, or to transform in a similar method to Circe. This deck list has other cards that synergize well with both of these. Things like Hood and the Rock from Rhino, as well as White Tiger, are all also additional excellent cards to be upgrading. And we round things out with a dash of disruption in the form of Red Guardian and Enchantress, as well as Quake to give us a little bit of additional location disruption when that's favorable for us to be doing. Our last card of the new season, Sparky, is finding a home in a fairly predictable archetype today, featuring the traditional move deck with Cosmo and Eliath as cards that are both disruptive for the opponents, but more importantly also protect what you have going on your side of the board as well. They can ensure that your Human Torch or Dagger or Vulture that you built up over the course of the game doesn't get blown away by a Shadow King or Shang-Chi at the end. This core is definitely the best performing version of move with Sparky on Untapped by the numbers. However, it's worth calling out that people are also playing bounce move variations, albeit their stats are significantly worse so far. Moving along to generic top performers in the new season, Mr. Negative is still just quietly trucking along as one of the best decks you could pick up and play in Marvel Snap. This core has basically been exactly these 12 cards since Esme Kuko released a number of months ago. This deck list has some of the best cube equity in the game, especially when you Mr. Negative into Jane Foster. Any reasonable Marvel Snap player is going to be retreating against you, and anyone who stays, you could snap into them and take all of their lunch money away with an absolutely massive flourish that's nearly impossible for most other decks to keep up with, as it's just completely unpredictable how many stats you're going to be putting out and where. Another classic archetype putting up solid stats in Marvel Snap week in and week out is the Bullseye Dakin discard variation. If you're someone who hates playing into tech cards, this is an excellent deck to have a ton of resilience into those. You have so many different scaling threats between Meek and Morbius and the Collector, and then obviously the deck's namesake in Dakin alongside Frigga to allow you to double all of them up. That is pretty difficult for someone to break all of your toys without leaving you some points of power around the board. Even if all of your scalers get blown up, you still have Swarm and Bullseye left in the back to still get points out, so they have to compete with you on rate still, even after all of that. Cerebro 2 has been quietly chugging along as well as a top performing archetype since its namesake was buffed to giving +3 points of power. If you like playing with proactive disruption, things like Goose and Storm, allowing you to lock out what's going on your opponent's side of the board, while also having a dash of reaction with Shadow King and Red Guardian, this deck list has been a consistently top performer for a number of seasons now. Our next top performer having an excellent start to the season with folks coming back to Infinite is Spectrum, a fairly classic archetype at this point that gets a ton of ongoing dorks on the board early for your top end to buff up. This deck list is also good at spreading out points wide thanks to Mr. Fantastic alongside Moonstone, allowing you to spread points across all 3 lanes very efficiently. This deck list also gets to play Cosmo not only as a synergy piece for your big finisher, but also as a way to protect whatever your big lane is going to be from powerful disruption on your opponent's side of the board. Something to note when you are playing out Moonstone in this deck alongside Captain Carter is you want to make sure one of them is in your front row and one of them is on your back row, because this allows you to double up the front row bonus on the back and then to the card next to it, allowing you to stack massive points in a single lane. Honey, wake up. New tech slop mush has dropped in Marvel Snap. We've got a classical Sarah control deck featuring Surge as well as Luna Snow as energy acceleration tools to let you get to the deck's namesake a little bit sooner, so that way you can play Cosmic Ghost Rider cleanly at the top end of your curve as an additional way to break your opponent's stuff. I really love the inclusion of both Merlin as well as Scarlet Witch in this core as well. I think people in general in Marvel Snap undervalue the ability to interface with locations. These cards really make it so you experience a lot less variance game to game, as they let you re-roll low rolls that would otherwise end you on the spot. Last but certainly not least, a top performer that is a newer deck to Marvel Snap is having a great start to the season on the Untapped tracker, and it is this Pixie, Annihilus, Ultron, Valkyrie amalgamation. This deck list has a pretty reasonable proactive game plan with either the Sentry plus Annie, allowing you to get lots of points on the board, or Ultron with Patriot alongside things like Wasp and the Hood's Demon, allowing you to stack stats up that way. Obviously, Pixie kind of ties the whole room together, giving you really powerful cube equity, but we also shouldn't undersell the fact that a lot of this deck's success is based on the fact that you're playing Valkyrie, Mobius and Mobius, and Shadow King for ways to break up whatever your opponent has going on in really clean ways. I have to say, I've been absolutely loving these Marvel Snap season kickoffs where we get these small drops of cards. It's exciting to not only have a number of new toys to play with, but it's also very refreshing to have cards that function in a number of different ways. So I'm not playing into a bunch of polarized tech cards looking to counter exactly the one card release that happened at the start of the season like we had in years past with Snap's one card drip at a time. I would love to hear what deck lists you've been finding success with that I should consider checking out in the comments down below. And as a reminder, if you want to see a number of these decks in action, especially the ones that I called out as my favorites for the season, be sure to check out the link to the daily deck highlights channel, where I upload a Marvel Snap deck feature 7 days a week with a bunch of sweet off-meta stuff. As always, I appreciate everybody that made it all the way through to the end of the video. Remember to smash the like button if you enjoyed the roundup and subscribe to the channel. And I hope your next Snap pack is an excellent one.